Making this cute little doll made me so happy today that I just really needed to share with you my process because it was so much fun. I have fun making all of my little sleep sack baby dolls, but I've been wanting to use some of this particular material for a while. You can find all of the other dolls and other things we have at mahomestead.com, and let's get going. So, the first thing that I do after, of course, cutting out all the pieces for my body and head is I take scraps from my scrap jar and I just make kind of a brain for the head, which gives it some weight. And then I like to take some of my extra little wool, or even sometimes it is just regular craft batting, and I cushion around the inner part of the head to make it nice and soft and cushy. But this is something that's really great with these little dolls is they have actually a little bit of weight to their head because I don't just use stuffing, I use this fabric. So now I'm going to stuff the body pieces with just bits and pieces again. Here I've got a little alpaca fiber that I'm going to stuff down into the little feet because I want those to be soft and squishy to the touch. And I've got a pile of just scrap yarn ends that I shoved in the jar at some point, and so I'm just going to compact that a little and get it down into the leg. Of course, I have sped up all the clips of this video because it took a lot longer than this 20-minute video, but still not too bad. It's a doable project in an afternoon for me. And anyway, my hands do not actually move this quick. So there's some scraps you can see I'm putting in the belly of that are the leftover pieces from what I actually cut the body out of. That fabric that I cut the body out of is actually a lining to a pair of my kids' pants that they got retired at some point, and so I just cut it out, and yeah, it became rather useful. I actually thought about using it as a body that you could see because it was cute. It's blue, it's got little peace signs all over it. But anyway, as you saw with the picture, these dollies have a sleep sack outfit on, and it is not removable. It is attached to it. So here I'm again putting a little alpaca in the bottom of the hand and stuffing these arms, and I like to do them at the same time just so I can kind of use the same types of materials so that they feel similar. Sometimes I have to cut up my little scraps a little smaller, and now I'm just feeling that I stuffed them kind of about the same. And then what I do is I see where the arm should be placed. And it just kind of the length, make sure everything looks good so that the body is somewhat proportional. It's a doll, I don't worry about it too much, but we don't want anything to look terribly off. And I like to just kind of set the head there and just see what it's going to look like and make any little adjustments that need done before I go over to the sewing machine. And now that I decide where the arms are going to go, I'm going to clip some of my sewing clips there, and then I will go sew them on over at the sewing machine. So I got done. I just went back and forth over the arms a few times right here. Remember, this part of the body doesn't show at all, so I don't really worry too much about messy sewing. Now we're going to stuff some more yarn inside to get the belly and chest area stuffed up some more. We want it to be nice and firm but also squishy at the same time. Once I get the chest cavity filled up, then I like to go and just run another stitch across the top. All of my seams that I sew on my sewing machine, I go around at least twice so that everything stays nice and secure. Again, here I'm just kind of fitting and seeing what I think it'll look like and making sure I have stuffed it enough. So now I'm comparing body size to another doll that I made, just so that I can see if I need to make any adjustments when I go to cut out the sleep sack for this doll. I just want to make sure it's a similar size and so that my pattern pieces will work for it, because I tend to just work on the fly. I like to work with what I have and see how it goes and make adjustments as needed. That's just part of my creative process. I've always kind of been that way. I look at what materials I have and make stuff with it. So here I was trying to see if I thought I needed a little bit more stuffing in the neck area, and then I decided I didn't. And so I am just going to roughly pin the head on so that I can do a little bit of stitching to it. And how to pin it all the way around so that it'll just stay put. And I like to also kind of decide what I think is going to be the front and the back. And I noted that the back right there was really flat, and this side kind of has a tummy and the head angles a little forward a little bit, and that's what I like. So this is going to be the front side of the doll. Now I just do a really quick, simple basting stitch for this step all the way around, because the goal of these stitches are just to hold the head into place on the body. We're going to do some more in-depth stitching a little bit later. So just go all the way around, and I can remove the pins as I go. The skin fabric that I chose came from a little piece of fabric we bought to repair some cuffs on a sweater that my daughter was not willing yet to give up, and she had ripped up the cuffs of her sweater. So it's just some brown like ribbing stretch fabric. So now I am going to go around a second time, because the basting stitches are really long, so I just want to make sure that his or her head stays nice and attached to the body. Okay, now I get to decide what fabric I think this little dolly wants to wear for its sleep sack. And that gray piece was a wool sweater recycled. The blue is a knit fabric. And this one is kind of like a velour fabric that's from an old big floor pillow that kind of fell apart. So I just need to make a decision here on what I like best. I kind of liked the striped blue, but at the same time I had really been wanting to use this for these dolls and try it out. I really like that it kind of has this fancy ruching there, and I think it would make a really fun detail. So what I'm doing is just folding that in half. It's got the two bits of ruching there, so fold it in half and placing my pattern piece on so that I can cut the first piece out. The pattern pieces I'm using are just my very own thing that I came up with one day. I've made a few different kinds of dolls, and I've used various people's other patterns, and I have some books, and but this doll is from my very own creation and size and all the things. So the fabric was really bunching up there as I was cutting it. So after I cut it out, I had to kind of spread it back out and fix some of it and cut off that extra. So next I need to cut a piece for the back, and that's just going to be out of a smooth piece of the fabric. We're going to leave that fancy detail for the front. This one was a lot easier to cut out. I'm just comparing sizes, make sure that they're, mostly compatible, and making any adjustments that I need to make right now before I get ready to stitch it together. So now I'm putting the right sides together and getting it clipped so that then we can take it over to the sewing machine and get it all sewn up. I did note after I got it lined up here, I still had some extra fabric I needed to trim off. So I'm just taking care of that right now, so it'll be easier to sew. Okay, I did my first pass around, and before I double seam it, I wanted to stick this dolly in and just kind of test the size and see if we like the fit. Much easier to make adjustments before we go adding a whole bunch more stitches. So I noted here that it went a little wider at the bottom than I wanted it to, so I just redrew some lines for me to follow when I come back around to stitch it. Now I've made those changes and I like that shape much better now, so I can trim off all this excess fabric so that it will turn right side out. And here we go. Time to see how we did. Let's use the pen to kind of shove the sleeve down there and open it up all the way. I really like how the front of this turned out. I like to fold in the neck, that extra fabric, down before I insert the body. Just helps me line everything up. So here the body's going in. This is one of my favorite parts. Now I'm just pinning the head in a little and shaping, and then I noted that the arms didn't quite reach the end of the sleep sack arms. So I tried to kind of shove it in, see if I could ruche it up a little bit, but it just didn't want to go. So I decided to take the body out and that we needed to trim off a little bit at the hands. So I'm just redrawing a hand there, and then I will take it over to the sewing machine and stitch around that a couple times, and it should be ready to go. Alright, now we're going to check and see if our arms fit better. Oh, and before I stitch him up, I want to sign my name to the body. I put a little heart on his heart, and I'm writing the date. I know nobody's going to see it, it's hidden, but it's just a special little touch that I like to do. You never know, you might need a new outfit sometime, and maybe someday somebody will open it up and they'll be able to see when it was made and who made it. It's just something I just started doing. My first few dolls don't have that. Alright, now I'm just trying to fit the neck nice so everything lays nice and neat, and so it can be ready for some final stitching. And then I pin it, and I like to poke the pins straight up into the head so that they're not poking me as I'm trying to sew around. One side of the shoulders here needs a little seaming, it's a little bit wide, so I'm adding some extra pins to hold that in place. And now I am picking my thread I'm making sure that this darker thread that I have doesn't contrast too much, and I think it'll look okay. So now I have stitched all around the neck and shoulders, and I have done that 2 times. The head is nice and secure on there. And now we're ready to give this little dolly a little personality with some hair. I thought I should show you that how I created the yarn for this hair. I actually spun it from this mohair from one of our goats. It was gray and we dyed it brown, and it is a boucle yarn that I hand spun around a little cotton thread, and it's all loopy, and it's going to make a nice head of curls. I think it'll be really fun. So I didn't count how many I chained or anything. I'm just single crocheting around in a circle, and I sped this up really fast so that we can take a little less time here. But it did take me a little bit of time to get it through, and eventually I did switch to a bigger crochet needle. I think I do that in just a minute. But I'm just checking to see the size. And, oh, I guess I already did the bigger crocheting. I sped this up real fast. So now I thread in that starting piece of yarn, and I have a little hole at the crown, so I'm just stitching that shut. So we don't want him to have a bald spot at the top of his head. Now I have to decide how I want the wig placed, what looks best, what looks like the front, what looks like the back, and get it all adjusted on there, and then we are going to pin it. Now something I noted later on is that I got a little too excited and I made this wig. Usually I embroider the face first, and then I put the head topper on. So I stitched that down good. I'm just checking to make sure everything looks good. And now I'm going to draw the face on. But like I said, usually I do it in the reverse. I don't know why I did it this way. It made it a little bit more difficult when I was embroidering. I had to be a little bit more creative about hiding. So I am just drawing on the face with this marker that is a wet erase, air erasable something. Anyway, and I'm just placing some little sleepy closed eyes, and I placed a little tiny spot for a nose and a little tiny smile. I like to give them very simple features. It's part of their charm. So then I need to decide what to use to embroider the eyes, the nose. I tried to pick, and the mouth. Anyway, I tried to pick for the eyes something that was close to the hair color. And so here it is, all embroidered, and now I'm just removing my marker so that you can see the adorable little face. I like to do just a hint of a little nose and a hint of a little smile. Just a sweet, sleeping little baby. Got my lint roller so I can clean up the face and the body, all my little strings and things that like to stick to it from my workbench. It is. Oh, there, that's a good view. The lighting can be a little difficult sometimes. I'm just playing with it a little bit and feeling the body. I just love how it feels. I'm getting excited there. Now it's time to really bring some character. I have this beeswax crayon that I just rub on a little piece of fabric, and then we're going to use this to add some rosy cheeks and some other rosiness, a little bit on the eyelids. You know how when babies get a real good sleep going on, you can see their little pink eyelids. And we'll put a little around the hairline too. they get all heated up when they're all cozy and sleeping. We are almost done. Just rubbing this in and around. I love that these babies are so simple. They're good for all ages. And this one I might not recommend for actual infants just because it has a wig and not a sewn on hat. But it should be fine for toddlers. There it is, all finished. I love how this little dolly turned out. It's adorable.